Meghan McCain over on The View made some comments about former President Obama that made Twitter apparently lose its mind. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Obviously, everyone on the left has basically appointed President Obama as nothing short of a saint. And obviously, I feel different, as most Republicans and conservatives do. I will say, the culture war that I believe is real and is raging in this country, I believe was ushered in with his administration and then exacerbated in the Trump administration. And if the election were held today, I do believe Trump would be reelected. And I think at a certain point, we have to start talking to each other in the middle. And we have to start talking about the faults on both sides, because he was not a perfect president. And I don't think perfect presidents would have ushered in the era of Trump.
Oh. So the fact that she said he's not a perfect president, just that, not a perfect president, not a saint. Maybe we should be able to talk about that. Yeah. And look, I didn't agree with all the, we'll go into more specifics of what she said, but just that alone, that she dared criticize Barack Obama, sent Twitter into total meltdown. She was trending on Twitter. People were attacking her in all these incredibly vicious ways. And
it's
look,
amazing.
I have my disagreements with Meghan McCain, but I think you should be able to discuss the former president without people losing their minds.
That's the real thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is that these liberals can't even countenance the idea that Obama is nothing less but a saint. Again, ask yourself.
It sort of proved her point, honestly.
Yes, they absolutely did. I wish we had the clip queued up. I've played it for everybody here so many times. The last speech Barack Obama gave for Hillary Clinton, where he goes, "My name might not be on the ballot, but justice is on the ballot. Act as if it's on the ballot. Go out there." He put his whole legacy on the line, and the country still elected Donald J. Trump for the presidency. If you do not believe that his 8 years in office had anything to do with the ascendance of Donald Trump in office, then you're an idiot.
But that's
you're an outright idiot.
And that is a core thing. And speaking of incredibly smart takes on this issue, Soledad O'Brien had a very well-reasoned and thoughtful response. Meghan McCain is kind of racist, in my honest opinion. Wow, Soledad, thank you for that brilliant contribution and analysis to the debate. If you want to know about the level of discourse that we saw unfold regarding this, but you're so right. That piece that she touched on, that Barack Obama's time in office would have anything to do with the president who immediately followed him after he handpicked Hillary, put his hand on the scale, handpicked Hillary as his successor, went all in for her, said, treat it as if my name is on the ballot, that then it leads to Donald Trump. This is a central failing of liberals in the Trump era, is to ever ask themselves, was there anything that we did that led to this moment? Not just with Barack Obama, but over the past 30 years. Is there anything? Do we have any complicity? Did we make any mistakes that would make people turn against us to where they would pick this ridiculous person? That question is not even allowed to be asked. And I don't think it's fair to say that Obama ushered in the culture war. I think the culture war was raging before Obama got to office, right? He didn't do anything to tamp it down, but the culture war was already raging. I also obviously like the talking to people in the middle. That's not, the way that I view these things. But again, I think you should be able to ask the question, why was Barack Obama's 8 years followed by Donald Trump without people melting down and saying you're a racist?
Yeah, no, look, Obama was the one who pioneered that strategy of he was the apotheosis, I've told everybody that's the word of the day today, of smug liberalism, which, he was the person, he'd look down on you and he'd look down on me and be like, what, you don't believe in free trade? Come on, folks. Yeah. That's something we do. And everybody's like, oh, yeah.
That's pretty good, Obama.
That's really what, that was his entire game. And that's why I have to disagree on the culture war front. Obama and his administration ushered in some of the most far-left policies from a cultural level, the most far-left cultural president of our lifetime, and had the audacity to sneer at religious and cultural conservatives for saying and vilifying them in the public press and allowing of course, the media, we always know what they are, but they go along with it all day long. Like I said, that reaction came from somewhere. The rage came from somewhere.
There was plenty of culture war under the George W. Bush administration.
Absolutely.
And I would say that...
And don't you think he got vilified for it? And he should have been.
Yeah, and I would say, yes, of course. They've forgotten that now. Now they love him. Now he's buddies with Ellen, and they wish he would come back, right? But I don't actually think that strategy was pioneered by Obama. I think he was the next sort of evolution of the Clintonian strategy that we've discussed here, of basically like only in order to appeal to this rising affluent, mostly white suburban class, they sort of pushed the economic populism that used to characterize and typify the Democratic Party and form the bedrock of their coalition, push that off in favor of the cultural leftism, which, look, I support, but I don't think, but ends up being incredibly divisive and polarizing when that's all you have and you're not also dealing with those economic populist elements. I think Obama was part of that. I don't think that he was the originator of that direction of the Democratic Party.
What he did was he made it existential for two groups of Americans, white working class Americans and religious conservatives, to the point where they had literally faced basic economic extinction or cultural extinction at the hands of Hillary Clinton. And so for them, they had no choice. That's literally how people felt. And you know what? I agree with them. I mean, if we had 4 more years, 8 more years of Hillary Clinton in office, more TPP, more types of these trade deals, and you have the court stacked with a bunch of cultural liberals, you don't have a social conservatism in America anymore that is codified with protections in American legal framework, and your jobs and economic livelihood are gone. And so that's what essentially what Obama created the conditions for, which is that this is what that culture war means to so many people. It's so hard for people to understand on the left, for people who have won the culture war for the last 40 years, to actually know what it's like to live in a country where you have lost all of the major fights over so many periods, in which you no longer feel as if any sort of elite institution, at the very least, can tolerate you. It feels as if there is a war against you at all times on a cultural front. And pair that with economics of shipping your jobs overseas, China, and so much more, you don't feel like it's your country anymore. And that's the only time. This is the at its core, why Donald Trump is president,
right.
Why I continue. He will always be underestimated in the polls and as a figure who fights. I mean, people are asking, like, why could he shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue? This is why. You make it existential for people, they're going to act like it's existential.
I mean, I think now Democrats understand that because they feel the same way about Joe Biden. Like, he could do anything and they would still vote for him because he's still better than Trump in there, and that's all that ultimately matters for them. Like, any principles be damned. The other piece of this, though, and going back to Soledad's very intelligent response, Meghan McCain is racist, in my honest opinion. There's also an inability to discuss how Obama leads to Trump without, like, the shutdown move is just to be like, it was all race. And look, and if you don't say that is the only and sole factor, then you are racist, you're ignoring racism in America, all of these things. Like, look, racism is real. There's no doubt about that. And racial dynamics in this country played into the response to the Obama administration and what came after. There's, like, no doubt about it. But when you just boil it down to that, first of all, there's no self-reflection, because then it's just all on those bad voters, right? It's all their fault because they hold these horrible racial views and there's nothing you can do about it. But it's also very defeatist because of exactly that. Like, okay, what are you going to do about that? Mm-hmm. And so it saves you from self-reflection, but it also means that you can't make progress, that it's not even worth. It lets you off the hook from even trying to appeal to the voters who switched from Barack Obama to Donald Trump. So it's very convenient in that way, but it's also incredibly, it's just nasty and vicious to level at someone, like Meghan McCain. There's no evidence that she's like a racist, and it's just like out of control, but that's the immediate go-to move. If you dare ask the question, how do we go from Barack Obama to Donald Trump? If your answer is not 100% race, then you yourself are considered a racist.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, Obama and so much of his presidency was typified by this type. If you were against him, you were a racist. If you came out against what he said for, that was it. People were coming against you. I saw somebody tweet, I can't remember who it was, that Obamagate is really Obama's temerity to be black. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It was the fact that he was black had everything to do with his administration's, setting up of Michael Flynn and the conduct of FBI, and of people like non-black people like Ben Rhodes and John Brennan and James Comey. Exactly. Let's just reduce it all down to race. And that's what they want. I mean, they ultimately want to cleave the country along racial lines, and so that allows them, in order to continue their economic policies, which have sold out the American working class.
Well, and
from that perspective, it's all about power. There's a reason that Shell Gas is totally okay with sponsoring the 1619 Project, who pay for these people's speaking fees, and they are cultural left icons because they don't threaten the bottom line of Amazon and Walmart. And if you start doing that, then you're a real problem.
It's like, I mean, there's a game that happens in this town, and you're exactly right. As long as you keep the multiracial working class divided along racial lines, then ultimately who can control everything? Like, that's how you keep your corporate control. That's how it works. It's how it works now. It's how it's worked for most of American history. And so, yeah, Democrats are complicit in that. And Meghan McCain, feel free, I didn't agree with everything you said, but feel free to continue talking about it, making your points, and making people lose their minds. I'm enjoying it. More Rising for you after this.